Hello everybody, it's Tanya and welcome to today's video. Today's video is going to be another exciting reading vlog for 3 exciting books which I have right here. If you watched my previous video, you know that recently I finished Madame Bovary by Gustave Flaubert and I was in love. I mean, I'm still in love. I really enjoyed that novel. So I'm continuing with French classics in this video because apparently I'm on a French classics kick right now, and I have 3 short, they're all pretty short books. I have 3 short novels here, so hopefully I will get to all 3 of them this week. I have already started A Life by Guy de Maupassant. This is very fitting because first of all the premise of this book sounds very similar to Madame Bovary. It is also about a young girl who graduates from a convent school and her parents take her back home. Her father is quite strict. He sent her to convent school because he wanted her to stay kind of pure and a virgin, and after the convent school he would find a fitting husband for her. So now that she is out of convent school and she's finally free, she is bursting with energy, she is very happy, she is full of love for life, she is excited about all of her upcoming adventures and her freedom, and the book starts with so much enthusiasm for life and so much dreams for life. She is also very well read, like Madame Bovary. She also likes romantic stories and romantic fiction, and she is particularly excited, of course, about her upcoming amorous adventures and, you know, meeting the man of her life and marrying him and having life with him, you know, becoming a mother. So she is like very much looking forward to all of this. But just like Flaubert, Maupassant was actually Flaubert's protege. Maupassant's mother was friends with Gustave Flaubert, and Gustave Flaubert was the one who encouraged Guy de Maupassant to start writing and to become a writer. It's not surprising, I guess, that he inherited a lot from Gustave Flaubert, and this book is also going to be about disillusionment and about discovering how life is very far from the romantic fiction that the girl read about. It apparently has a very heartbreaking ending, which I don't know what's going to happen, but I kind of read this book, I read about this character with kind of sense of a doom, because I know that Flaubert was a pessimist, Maupassant is a pessimist as well, so it's not going to end well. Yeah, I'm really enjoying his writing. His writing is very beautiful, very descriptive. The way he describes the nature of the place, the way he describes like night and what Jean, the main character, is imagining. It's all very beautiful, so I'm really enjoying this book currently. I will continue with it and then I will update you later. So, A Life by Guy de Maupassant. After Guy de Maupassant, I have Emile Zola. Emile Zola, Terese, Raquin. Now, this book is going to be, I think, quite different from Madame Bovary and A Life, but it's also a pessimistic one. As far as I know, it produced very negative reactions when it was first published because it has to do with a murder, and it's like a study of human character at the extremes. A couple, a woman and her lover, and they kill the woman's husband. So, and then Zola goes into like their psyche, and Zola starts to investigate like how they feel, what happens to them after they commit this terrible crime. So it's going to be very psychological, and when the book was first published, it got very negative reviews because of how brutal it was, because of how graphic it was, I guess. So I am curious to read this novel. I'm very much looking forward to this. And then I decided to leave the best for last. I expected to be the best. So I have Pere Goriot. I don't know, I hope I pronounce, well, maybe not. So Pere Goriot or Goriot, I'm not sure. by Honore de Balzac. I am looking forward to this. First of all, Honore de Balzac was Fedor Dostoevsky's one of his favorite writers. If you don't know, Dostoevsky was reading and translating his Eugenie Grande, which I also have, but I will keep it for a different vlog. And then I also recently watched another Russian booktuber, and she recently read this book and she really loved it. She enjoyed it a lot, and she reads a lot of books and she has like similar tastes, I guess, with me, so I feel like I will also enjoy this book. If she enjoyed it, I will probably enjoy it as well. So I am very much looking forward to this one. I decided to keep it for the last. It's something about a father who loves his two daughters to pieces, who does everything for them. Heartbreaking ending. That's what I heard so far. So yeah, this is going to be my last book for this vlog. These are the 3 books that I'm reading. I hope I will like all of them. Very much looking forward, and let's start reading.
Jean gazed at the broad expanse of the sea, rippled like moire silk and seemingly asleep beneath the stars. In the stillness left by the departed sun, all the different smells of the land filled the air. A jasmine clambering round the ground floor windows gave off its steady, pungent scent that mingled with the fainter perfume of its newly unfolded leaves. Slow eddies of breeze brought with them the reek of the salty sea air and the oozing slime of seaweed. At first, Jean simply yielded to the pleasure of breathing in the air, and the peace of the countryside soothed her like a cool bath.
I am reading about one very sad character. Her name is Aunt Lise. Well, they actually currently call her Aunt Lizon, because apparently name changes the older you get. So now she's Aunt Lizon. But she's so sad. Like the way he describes her, she's this quiet person, unnoticed by her family. She has never been noticed by them. She has always been this quiet and shy, not talkative creature. Nobody kind of has ever paid any attention to her. Nobody has ever felt any type of feeling towards her. They did have some kind of disdain for her because there was, like, they call it Liz accident, when she was trying to drown herself, and nobody paid attention to that. Like, a person is trying to drown herself and everybody just took it as an accident, like she is weak in her head or something. And actually after this accident they were thinking of her as weak in her head. That accident happened when she was 20. Now she is in her 40s. She's such a lovely woman. I mean, look how he describes her, like how other people kind of think of her, how they treat her. She took up no space. She was one of those creatures who remain strangers even to their own family, like unexplored lands, and whose death leaves no gap, no empty place in a household. One of those people who are incapable of entering into the lives and loves
and everyday routine of those around them. When someone said Aunt Lison, those two words stirred almost no affection in anyone. It was as if they had said the coffee pot or the sugar bowl. She arrived towards the middle of July in a great state of excitement and the prospect of this marriage. She brought a pile of presents which since they were from her, passed almost unnoticed. Extraordinary emotion was brewing within her, and her eyes never left the betrothed couple. She busied herself making the trousseau with singular energy, feverishly working away like a simple seamstress in her room where no one came to see her. I feel so bad for this Aunt Lison. She seems like such a lovely old woman. Why nobody pays attention to her? She's adorable. Yes, I feel bad.
Continuing with A Life by Guy de Maupassant, and I'm reading a part where he talks about main protagonist's feelings once she came home from her honeymoon with her husband. I cannot imagine this, like, if I were in her shoes, how terrible would that be? It's not going to be like a big spoiler, it's just her feelings. So it's not like something is happening, it's just like her feelings. So I will read it to you. She wondered what to do next, and tried to think of some occupation for her mind, some task for her hands. Then she realized that there was nothing left for her to do, ever. Her whole childhood at the convent had been taken up with the future, and she had busied herself with fantasies. In those days, the continual excitement provided by her hopes and aspirations had filled her hours so that she never noticed their passing. And then, basically, now that she is married, she has nothing else to dream about. And also, she has nothing else to do. Like, how terrible would that feeling be? Like, can you imagine, like, realizing that you have nothing else to do ever? I feel like it's so terrible. It's almost like an end of... Oh, this is just scary. And then later on he continues. And so there was nothing left to do today, tomorrow, ever again. And she sensed all this in some way as a kind of disillusion, as the collapse of her dreams. This is very... I don't know, I feel like we are living in such better times when women have an opportunity, you know, to do things and not experience this type of disillusionment. Hello everybody. I'm going to a coffee shop and I'm taking you along because I need to study as usual. I always study Japanese. So I'm going to study Japanese now as well. I have actually registered for Japanese language proficiency test in December. I'm taking like a very low level, N4. So like N5 is the lowest. N4 is a little bit higher, but like it's not really high, it's a low level. but it's just going to motivate me to like study more vocabulary, be more consistent with my Japanese studying. So I'm excited about that. I will tell you about the book later. Now let's go study Japanese. Day, I am continuing with A Life by Guy de Maupassant. This book makes me so angry. It started making me so angry. I mean, not the book is really like absorbing, and it's also a page turner, like Madame Bovary. Like, it creates so much emotion in you, so much response, at least like in my case. In my case now, like certain characters, their decisions make me very angry, and like how unfair it is towards the main protagonist. I just cannot. Main protagonist is such like a pure, genuine person, and that's why I cannot. I hate it when something like unfair happens to her, and I'm now so angry. I will not spoil you, so I will not go into much detail, but basically I don't like how everybody here is so suddenly gets just resigns. Like, you know, something terrible happens, something that shouldn't happen, and everybody is like, oh, but that's okay, it happens with everybody, that's what everybody does. Oh, so then that's okay, don't hold grudges. And I'm like, oh, what do you mean don't hold grudges? This is not a grudge, this is a problem that needs to be addressed and that needs to be solved. And they're like, but everybody does it, it's okay, it happens to everyone, don't hold grudges. And it makes me so angry. She's a very young girl, she needs help from her parents, and it's her parents who are like, everybody, it happens to everybody, that's okay. It's like her parents. And I'm so angry. I mean, she's your daughter. And why do you behave like that? Like, why? Oh, I'm so emotional at this point. I cannot. Oh, this book makes me very emotional. I'm an emotional reader. I'm just like, what? Like, no, no, you need to solve it, you need to do something about it, you need to make it stop. And they're like, don't hold grudges. No, you need to hold grudges, you need to don't hold grudges, but just solve the problem, solve it. But you see, the problem was that like they couldn't solve it at that time. We are now much freer, and thank you that I'm born in this day and age, and like not back then, because back then a woman's life was just, well, I don't envy them, let's put it that way. I do not envy them. This poor girl, I'm really enjoying this book, really enjoying it. I'm currently halfway through, so hopefully I will finish it like maybe today, tomorrow, and then I will start a new one. Oh, but it's Hi everybody, I have an update for you about this book. It makes me so emotional. I can only read one chapter at a time because every single chapter breaks my heart. Something terrible happens to the protagonist every single chapter. Like I start the chapter and I already know that my heart is going to be broken, and I'm just like, I'm preparing for that. This book is so incredibly heartbreaking. It's very heartbreaking. It is a page turner. Like, your heart hurts for the main protagonist. It genuinely hurts. You are really nervous about her. In my case, most of the time I feel very bad for her, but sometimes, starting like somewhere maybe from the middle of the book, I also sometimes get angry with her, because in the beginning of the book she is a young girl, and like I would expect people around her to help her, but starting from the middle of the book she is already a grown-up woman, and things that happen to her, they only happen because she allows it. Like, she cannot stand up for herself. She just allows things to happen. People mistreat her just like that. Not everybody, but certain people mistreat her. With this book I don't cry, but it breaks my heart to see how she is mistreated and how she is taken advantage of. But closer to the end to the book, she herself becomes quite an unlikable character, actually, because she has suffered so much, and by the end of the book she becomes so incredibly needy. And I'm like, you are suffocating your child, you are suffocating him. And like, I just don't like the person she became at the end. But then when you look at her life, she's been so unhappy her whole life. I don't know, I really feel for the main protagonist of the book. I have very little left, you see here, very little. So I will finish it tonight. I will let you know my final thoughts, but currently, again, I am in two minds about her. On one hand, I feel so terrible for her. On the other hand, I don't like her very much, to be honest. I have finally finished A Life by Guy de Maupassant, and I am so incredibly grateful to Guy de Maupassant because it ends hopefully, and that's what I like in books. This book is very incredibly depressive. Like, majority of this book is like, it's very depressive. Your heart is crushed every single chapter. Our protagonist's purity and innocence and dreams and aspirations, herself, are being crushed every single chapter. So it's not a positive book. Like I said in the very beginning, it is a book about disillusionment. The ending gives you hope. Like, you saw in the previous clip the last sentence. I will read it to you. The last sentence, it's not a spoiler, it's just the character's thoughts. The character thinks to herself, you see, life is never as good or as bad as we think. I really liked it, and in the end of the book, our protagonist gets hope again. She starts believing in life. She is given the opportunity to start believing in life and in herself once again. And I love it. It just saved me, because while I was reading this book, I was like, I don't know if I want to ever reread it. I really don't think that I want to ever come back to this book, even though I am grateful for the experience of reading it. I didn't think that I would like to come back to it, but after I read the very end, now I think that I really would like to reread it once again. Not immediately, not now, but like a little bit later on, once I forget about the whole plot, I would reread it. Hopeful moments in books are very important to me. Hopeful endings are very important to me. So I'm very grateful and really happy that this book had it. I still cannot say that I like the protagonist. I don't like her. She, in the beginning of the book, yes, she's a girl. She is very young and she's full of life and aspirations for life and for love. And that's why she is very likable. But when she grows up, she stays that young girl. She never grows up like in her head. She stays simple. She stays very quite uneducated actually. She doesn't know how to run the house. She doesn't understand how to run business. She has never talked to any notary. So basically people around her have to do everything for her, because she herself has no idea how to do things. And it really, I don't know, I couldn't like it. So I just don't, yeah, I cannot say that she is a likable character. I wouldn't call her that. She is very inactive. She is very passive. She allows things to happen to her. She never actually takes things into her hands. So that's what I didn't like about her inactiveness, her passiveness. But what I like about this book is that, yeah, it's the hopefulness. It does show that people, just like life, they are never as good or as bad as we think they are. Sometimes people who have done you wrong, at the end of the day, can turn out and be your best friends. And I like this like duality that it was portrayed in this book. I think it was very interesting. So yeah, this book definitely, I guess, is a realistic novel, but a pessimistic one, but it gives you hope, which was great. So yeah, I would recommend reading it, but prepare yourself that it's not going to be an easy read. Your heart is going to be crushed, you're going to be angry, you're going to be upset. Prepare yourself for that. But I think it's a really nice book, and I also like his writing. His writing is very enjoyable to read. He writes beautifully and descriptively. He has so many beautiful descriptions of nature. I really liked it. So, A Life by Guy de Maupassant, recommended. And then my next book, which I'm starting, is going to be Emile Zola, Terese, Raquin. I hope it's going to be less heartbreaking than A Life by Guy de Maupassant, because honestly, like, I need a break for all the heartbreakingness. But I have high hopes also for Emile Zola. It's going to be my first book by him, so hopefully, I'm sure it will be great. I'm sure it will be great. So yeah, Emile Zola, Terese, Raquin, let's start.
Emile Zola was a savage. Remember I told you that the book was received very negatively after it was published? Actually, in this introduction, the author of the introduction says that it might very well be orchestrated by Emile Zola himself. The first negative review was written by his friend, so the author of the introduction suggests that it's very possible that Emile Zola asked his friend to write this negative review to create publicity for his book and to stir interest for his book, because Emile Zola was apparently very good at self-promotion. The negative reviews might have been orchestrated, but still, in the preface to the second edition, he kind of explains himself, and he talks about the negative reviews that his book got and what he writes about the writers of the negative reviews. He says, "I make no complaint about this reception. On the contrary, I am charmed to observe that my fellow writers have the sensitive nerves of young girls." He was a savage. Sensitive nerves of young girls. And then lower here, he goes to explain the idea for his book. So he says, "In Terese Raquin, I set out to study not characters but temperaments. Therein lies the whole essence of the book. I choose to portray individuals existing under the sovereign domain of their nerves and their blood, devoid of free will and drawn into every act of their lives by the inescapable prompting of their flesh. Terese and Lorraine are human animals, nothing more. In these animals, I set out to trace step by step the hidden workings of the passions, the urges of instinct, and the derangements of the brain which follow on from a nervous crisis." How interesting, you see? So yes, I've read the introduction, preface, and I'm going to start with the novel itself.
Everybody. So I have read the first 45 pages of Terese Raquin by Emile Zola. This book is so atmospheric. It started very atmospheric. Like, it starts with the description of this dark, dirty, abandoned, poor alley somewhere in Paris. And it starts with all the descriptions of like walls, how dilapidated they are, how dirty they are, old dirty windows of the houses. There was like an old abandoned signs of old abandoned shops. It was so atmospheric. And then we move on to the introduction of the main characters of the book, and they themselves are very atmospheric because it's a woman, Madame Raquin, her son, who is a very sickly, very small, very weak young man. He has always been very sickly. She has dedicated her whole life to treat him and to support his life, because his whole life he was sick pretty much all the time. And then there is this young girl, Terese Raquin, who is kind of his cousin, because this Madame Raquin's brother brought her. She was his daughter from a woman from Africa. The woman passed during giving birth to the girl, and so the Madame Raquin's brother brought her to his sister to leave her with his sister. He acknowledged her as his daughter, and then he just left the girl with the woman. And basically her whole life this girl was living in the room of the sickly boy. She was like his playmate and his cousin. Like, they've never had any kind of affection towards each other. This boy, because he has always been the center of the family, he grew up very selfish, he grew up very self-centered. He pretty much thinks about himself. He doesn't even think much of his mother. He just thinks what he wants to do and what is the best for him. And so Terese was always kind of this addition to him. She was there to play with him, to kind of force him to drink drugs, because he didn't want to take medicine when he was sick. He only took it if Terese took it as well. So she had to drink his medicine, even though she was perfectly healthy. She had to drink his medicine with him, because otherwise he wouldn't take the medicine. So she was always kind of sacrificed to him. And she has always been this very, inside of her, she always had like a well of emotions. She has always been full of like energy and passions, but she always had to suppress it, because her aunt, she would always scold her whenever Terese made a sound, like too loud of a sound, like during playing or talking. Her aunt would be annoyed, because she was like, don't be loud because it will hurt Camille. Camille is her cousin, so the sickly boy. And so she has always lived her life kind of as a sacrifice to Camille. Even though Madame Raquin, she treated her as a daughter, she treated her well. But just because of how their family worked, which is that Camille was the center of the family and everything was done for Camille, Terese was kind of suppressed. She has been suppressed her whole life. Also, it has been always kind of decided that these two children, they would marry one day, because Madame Raquin understood that she would die one day, and Camille would die without her, like, because he cannot take care of himself, he's very sickly. And she just kind of from the very beginning decided to herself that Terese would become his wife. And children themselves, they kind of just accepted it. And so everybody just lived with this understanding that they one day would be married. Even though they don't love each other, they have no affections pretty much for each other, nothing. It just, you know, again, just to support Camille, just to help out Camille, just to keep him healthy. So imagine this woman, always suppressed, always a sacrifice for someone else. There was one episode when they were playing, and Terese, she is usually very quiet, like she has this poker face. She never shows any emotion. She just like behaves very submissively. But there was this one episode that a little bit kind of I understood that the girl is not as simple as she is. She's just being suppressed. There was an episode when they were playing with Camille. They were living in like a house somewhere in the village. And so they were playing on the banks of the river. And Camille, I don't know if it's by accident or on purpose, but he pushed her. And she fell on her back. And then after she fell, she jumped up and she was so angry. And she started beating Camille very angrily. And it was written that Camille got scared. So it was the first kind of outburst of hers. And that's when I understood, like, girl is not that simple. She is not okay. So yeah, this book is really atmospheric. It's also quite fast-paced. Like, he doesn't waste words, he doesn't waste time. You see, it's very short book, so you have to get to everything pretty quickly. It's really interesting. So yeah, I will continue reading. I'm really enjoying it. Today I think we will go for a walk with my husband, so hopefully I will be able to read something. And yeah, I will let you know more later when I read some more. But so far I'm really liking it, but it's really different from A Life by Guy de Maupassant. The main protagonist is really different. In A Life, Jean was so just acceptive, she was just so quiet, she had no free will of her own, she was just kind of accepting everything that happened to her. With this girl, I think one day she will break, one day she will burst. And yeah, this girl is not like Jean, she's very different. So I'm looking forward to continuing this book. I also feel like it's a very good autumnal read, just because of all the descriptions of this poor Paris, you know, poor Paris in the 19th century, like dirty streets, like poor streets, dark and stuff like that. It's very atmospheric, and also just the premise of the book as well. So yeah, really enjoying it. So we'll continue. Hello everybody. We decided to go for a walk. Today is such a good weather. It's a little bit raining, just a little bit raining. So we are going to have some lunch somewhere outside. Walk in the rain. It's going to be beautiful. I will take you along. I also took my books along, which I don't hope to read much, but maybe there will be a short opportunity for me to read a little bit. That would be nice. So yeah, now let's go. Everybody, today is such a lovely day. It's cloudy and overcast and even rains a little bit, but it's really good. It's really nice outside. So we had some coffee, we went for a walk, we had some sandwich. I also read, we are sitting now in this area, these benches, and it's such a lovely place to come here and just read a book. So good here, I really like it. So yeah, I've been reading. I will talk about the book later at home, but it's been lovely. I'm really enjoying it currently. So it's not an uplifting topic, but it's interesting to read, so I will talk about the book later. But yeah, just such a good walk, such a good day. Really enjoying it. You have just seen me finish Terese Raquin by Emile Zola. This book, it was really interesting. I really enjoyed my experience with this. It's so dark, it's so atmospheric. I feel like it would make a perfect autumnal read for those of you who feel the need and the urge to read dark This is not a scary book, but it's a dark book. It's a very dark book, because the premise of it is that I've already talked in the beginning of how it starts. So there is this girl, Terese Raquin, who was brought to her aunt by her father, left with her aunt, and she has always been a sacrifice to this young, sickly boy, Camille. They get married, but they don't love each other. She despises him. He is very sickly. He has no even sexual drive. He's not interested in her as a woman whatsoever. They just kind of live in one room, sleep in one room, but there's nothing between them. And then she meets his friend, who is on the contrary from him, full of strength, who is full of life, who is full of drive, and they have this super passionate love affair. And then they mistake their passion for love, and then they commit a terrible crime. And then this book, after they commit the crime, becomes a very realist psychological study. So all the events happen in the beginning of the book, and the second part of the book is pretty much all of it is just their deterioration of their mind, of their state, of their nerves. They're just being crushed by fear, not guilt, fear. And it was very interesting to read about. I think it's even more of a page turner than A Life by Emile Zola. For my speed, the way I usually read, I read it quite quickly. I read it for 3 days, I think. So it's fast for me, even for this book, because I don't sit all day and read. So 3 days, finishing this book in 3 days for me is fast. Also, it has very short chapters, which also kind of helps you, right? So you're I can read this chapter and then I can read the second chapter. So it's because chapters are so short, it's pretty much just 4 pages, 1 chapter, 4 pages, very quick. So it was very interesting reading experience. I would really recommend this book for your perusal, but prepare yourself, because I cannot say it's a depressing one. It wasn't depressing, at least for me. I didn't feel depressed when I was reading it, but it's terrifying. It's really scary. If you imagine what their life becomes after the crime, it's scary. If you start empathizing with them, when I was reading it, I distanced myself from them. I was just kind of because usually, I kind of empathize with the character, right? I kind of imagine myself in the character's situation. In the case of this book, I didn't want to imagine myself in their situation. I will just read about them, but I will not try to imagine anything, because it's really terrifying, if you start empathizing. So yeah, very interesting book. I'm really glad I read it. I'm going to continue with Emile Zola for sure. Nothing positive in here, nothing, no hope. But again, you perfectly understand why there is no hope. I wouldn't expect any hope here in this book. It's just unthinkable. It's his first book. It was the first book he wrote. First or second? I think second, because his first one wasn't very successful. I think this was his second novel attempt. Impressive, very cool. I would recommend it. I would really recommend it. Now, the last book for this reading vlog is going to be Pere, Goriot by Honore de Balzac. Yes, I'm excited about this. Hopefully I will like it. I really like the cover. This old man looks kind. I feel I need something kind after this book. I really need something kind after this book. I don't even know how, what more to say about it. It's hard to describe, because nothing much is happening. It's just their deterioration of their psyche and how it's happening, and it's really interesting to follow, and it's very interesting to observe. But yeah, it's very hard to kind of describe it in more detail. I am looking forward to this book now. I need some kindness. I need something, you know, kind and positive a little bit. Though I know that this is not going to be a positive book because it's a tragic story again. It says in the blurb, a tragic story of a father whose obsessive love for his two daughters leads to his financial and personal ruin. It's not going to be a positive book, but okay. At least there is love. At least there is love in here, you know? Because here, there wasn't much love. Really wasn't. Okay, I will start reading and I will update you when I have something to update you with. I'm reading Father Goriot, currently page 70, and it is getting so good. I am in the beginning I was a little bit bored because I was waiting and like the book wasn't what I expected it to be. It still isn't what I expected it to be, but I am getting really into it. So I came along this really interesting passage which talks about kind of rules, I guess, of the societal life in Paris at that time. It is so interesting. I will read it to you.
Monsieur de Rastignac, treat the world as it deserves. You want to get on. I will help you. You will plumb the depth of women's corruption. You will measure the extent of men's miserable vanity. Although I am well read in the book of this world, there were yet some pages unknown to me. Now I know it all. The more coldly calculating you are, the further you will go. Strike without pity, and people will fear you. Accept men and women as mere post horses to be left worn out at every stage, and you will reach the summit of your ambitions. Don't forget that you will be nothing here unless you have a woman to take an interest in you. You need one who is young, rich, elegant. But if you have any genuine feelings, hide them like a treasure. Never let anyone suspect them, or you will be lost. You would cease to be the executioner and would become the victim. If you ever fall in love, keep your secret well. Do not reveal it until you know extremely well to whom you are opening your heart. To preserve and advance this love, as yet unborn, learn to distrust the world.
How calculating and how not isolated, but just inhuman is this attitude to people and life. But then I feel like it's still true. Don't you think so? Even in our time, even in our day, I feel like if you really want to succeed, oftentimes I guess people have to be like that. Use people like post horses to be left worn out at every stage. I guess it's true, but it's such a painful truth. You have to be like that. Well, let's hope that we are living in better times. though I have a feeling that we are not. Well, that's a good thing then, that I'm just a simple person and not a rich one. Everyone, I'm continuing to read, and my heart is broken. This father Goriot, he's talking about his daughters. So basically the situation is that both of his daughters are very well married, they're very rich, they're living in rich houses, they're wearing expensive clothes, but he himself lives in a very dilapidated, old, dirty, like very poor district, very poor like house, like it's like a family boarding house where he lives. And so one of the characters, he meets his daughters and he just doesn't understand how is it possible that daughters are so rich yet their father is living in such conditions, and he's asking the father like, how is it possible, what's happening? And so the father Goriot answers, so I will read it for you. He says, "What good would it do to me to live in greater comfort? I really can't explain the sort of thing. I can't put two words together properly. That's what it's all about," he added, striking his heart. "My life, my own life, is all in my two daughters. If they enjoy themselves, if they're happy and finely dressed, if they have carpets to walk on, what does it matter what clothes I wear or what sort of bedroom I have? I don't feel cold if they are warm. I never feel sad if they are laughing. My only sorrows are theirs. When you become a father and say to yourself, as you heart your children bubbling, that's my doing. When you feel these little creatures attached to you by every drop of your blood, for they were its finest flower, and that's the truth, you will think that their skin is an inseparable part of you. Your body will seem to respond to their movements. Their voice speaks to me wherever I am, and sad look from them makes my blood run cold. One day you will learn that their happiness is a greater source of joy than one's own. I can't explain it to you. Something stirs inside you and fills you with contentment. In a word, I live 3 times over. Let me tell you something strange. Well, when I became a father, I understood God. His presence is everywhere, since all created things come from Him. That is how I am with my daughters. I only love my daughters more than God loves the world, because the world is not as beautiful as God, and my daughters are much more beautiful than I am. Isn't this so touching? When he's talking like how he's living his life through his daughters, how much he loves them, how it doesn't matter to him like what kind of circumstances he is in, if they are happy. This is so heartbreaking, especially in the situation when the daughters are actually ashamed of him. And especially their husbands as well, but now because of the husbands' daughters as well, they're ashamed of him. They don't want him in their lives. They behave lovingly towards him when he comes, but he, for example, is not allowed in their houses. He is only allowed like to their personal rooms, or he is allowed to like meet them outside of the house, not in the house, so he cannot live with them, for example. And it's just so hard, like when you look at what he's saying and the actual situation he is in, it is so heartbreaking. This book is so heartbreaking. I will continue reading. There are so many good passages in this book. I feel like I will be reading you a lot of the passages. Balzac. Honore de Balzac. I need to read you more. Honore de Balzac. Hello. So, the passage that I really like, he writes. So basically, these two young men are talking about Rousseau, and somewhere apparently he asks the reader a question. What would you do if somebody approached you and told you that you can become very rich by just wishing an old man in some other country far away from you dead?
you don't have to go to this country, you just have to wish it, you just have to nod your head. Just do that and you will be rich. The man will die, but you will be rich. And like there is, no danger of you like going to prison or anything like that. Would you do that? And so the one of the young men, he says, "For my part, I am content with the modest living I shall make in the provinces, where I shall quite simply take over from my father. A man's desires can just as easily be satisfied in the smallest of circles as within an immense circumference. Napoleon didn't dine twice a day and couldn't take any more mistresses than a medical student doing his house training at some small town. Our happiness, my friend, will always lie between the soles of our feet and the crown of our head. Whether it costs 1,000,000 francs a year or 100 louis, our basic perception of it is just the same within us. So I conclude that the Chinaman lives." I love it so much. I love it so much. I'm crying. Okay. Hello everybody. I have finally finished reading Pere Goriot. I've been reading it all day because I wanted to finish. I really wanted to finish this vlog because it has taken me a long time to film. So finally I finished all 3 books. I really enjoyed it, but it's so incredibly heartbreaking. I almost cried at some points, but when I was crying at the same time, I was so angry. This book made me feel mixed feelings. Sad, but also so angry, exactly like the main protagonist here feels. The plot of this is described as like it's a book about a father who is obsessed with his love for his daughters and who does everything for them. But the book is not about that. The book is not about father and his daughters. It is like on the surface, but actually it's about French society of that time. And this book is a very harsh critique of the hypocrisy of that society, of the coldness and just thirst for money and success in the society, but complete absence of all the genuine emotions of love or affection or responsibility, for example, of children in front of for their parents. This book shows how society is actually very superficial and there is nothing sincere, honest there. People in appearance live very rich lives when actually when you open their purse they have only 70 francs there. They don't have any money. They all gamble, or they all have mistresses or lovers who gamble, and there is no genuine emotion there. And so the book is about that. We see 2 worlds in here. We see a world of this high society, and also in glimpses, very few glimpses, in the character, for example, of Pere Goriot, or in characters of our protagonist's family. We see the other side of the society, like poor people, not rich at all, but happy. People who are genuinely happy because they genuinely feel love, they genuinely feel affection. People who are actually capable of this happiness. Our main protagonist, he kind of unites in himself both of these worlds. He is very much in doubt. He doesn't know what he should do.
like in which direction he should move. Should he try and go into the society, or should he stay in the middle class of this society? Because he sees how high society is superficial, insincere, but at the same time that's the place where you can gain success, where you can gain money. But at the same time it means that you will never have actual happiness. It's impossible to have happiness with those people who are so empty. They are completely empty. They are devoid of all the heart or emotion or love or anything like that. So yeah, this book is interesting. It's also quite easy to read, I noticed. You just kind of lose yourself in this story. So it wasn't a burden for me to read. I also liked that I could lose myself in this book. So yeah, I really enjoyed Pere Goriot. I would also highly recommend it. Now let's think. So let's draw some conclusions. So for this vlog I have read these 3 books. I've read Alive by Guy de Maupassant, Terese Raquin by Emile Zola, and Pere Goriot by Honore de Balzac. So my favorite, I think I've read them in the order of how much I like them. So I think I liked Alive the least out of these 3, and then Terese Raquin would take the 2nd place, and then Pere Goriot would take the 1st place. Like, I liked it the most. I think it's the strongest book out of these 3, definitely, like, for sure. It just makes you think a lot. It makes you assess your priorities. It makes you assess your behavior. It makes you assess your choices, and it challenges you. And that's what I like about it. I cannot say, like, enjoyment is not the word for this book. You don't enjoy this kind of stories, but they affect you. You know, they teach you things, they make you think, they make you assess certain behavior of yours. So yeah, I feel like this book was the best out of all 3, even though all of these books are deserving, and I definitely enjoyed all of them and I appreciate all of them. But yeah, Pere Goriot took the 1st place for me. So I will finish this vlog here. Let me know in the comments if you have read any of these 3 books, what you thought about them. If you haven't, I would highly recommend all 3 of them. Actually, I would recommend all 3 of them for sure. Finally I have finished reading these books after like 2 weeks with a few days. So this vlog took me a while to finish. Oh well. Yeah, I always say that I read slowly, but yeah, these were good books. They deserved the attention and they deserved the time, and I was happy to give it to them. So yeah, these are 3 books. Thank you so much for watching. Let me know in the comments if you read them, if you liked them, what you thought about these books. Recommend me some other French classics that you think I should read, because French classics are awesome. I should really read more of French classics. So yes, thank you very much for watching. I hope you are having a very good day. I hope you are staying safe, and I hope you are reading good books and enjoying them. And I will see you soon in my next videos. Thank you very much for watching. Have a good day. Thank you. Bye.